Hey guys, what's up? GreenMachineSam back with another video, and today we have another Madden 24 roster update guide. I'm going to go over a couple things that people have had questions about and so on and so forth, but let's get into things right away. First and foremost, this is a PS5 exclusive roster. Of course, that only means it will be on PS5 exclusively. The Madden roster takes a lot longer than a lot of the 2K rosters that I end up doing because it's just a lot more tedious. I don't have control over as many things, and I have to work around certain aspects that EA puts restrictions on, whether that's positional requirements or whether that's contract money and years being tied to overalls and not based off of, me being able to go in and change it, and age not being a factor, as well as dev traits, all this different stuff. There is a lot of work to be done, right? There's a lot of work to be done when creating some of these rosters. Hell, the update that I just did that was only like 7 players, it still took 10 minutes. Even though it was a lot of the same repeated process of switching this dude to a QB or punter so that he'll be a low enough overall to sign a 1-year deal and put him on that team and then switch him back, change his jersey number, all that fun stuff, it still took a couple of minutes, right? So then when other players are there or more players are there, it takes even longer and stuff like that. I did have something else that I wanted to talk about in terms of something I couldn't change about the roster, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I have went over the fact that I can't change schemes, so whatever the scheme was in Madden 24, that's the scheme that player will be playing in going forward, even if a different head coach is coming in. Like Carolina, who brought in a new coach, they might not be playing a 3-4 this year, they might be playing a 4-3. I'm not 100% certain, I don't know what that coach wants to run or what that defensive coordinator will run in Carolina. But for the example that I am using is Carolina. They ran a 3-4 last year. I can't change it to a 4-3 this year, or when other players play as not the Carolina Panthers, it will fuck up and it will have players in the incorrect positions and stuff like that, right? So I don't want to do any of that. I can't do any of that. I have to stick with the schemes that the teams had last year. I can't change coaches either. That's just something you're going to have to deal with in terms of I don't have access to that. EA doesn't allow me that stuff, unlike 2K, So there's a lot of different things. So, first and foremost, you guys are want to head over to the Creation Center, then head over to Share and Manage Files. Go to Download Community Files. I did just upload the latest thing this morning, so you will have a new roster. You can search by date, or you can go over to the roster page. The roster page my roster will be high up there in terms of regular rosters, but there's a lot of other rosters here as well. College, Hall of Fame, Legends, all this different stuff. But mine is the Madden 25 roster update. It's a very good roster. It has a lot of stuff done. Keenan Allen going to Chicago, Kenny Pickett going to Philly, Aaron Donald retiring, Dallas cutting, Leighton Vander Esch and Michael Gallup, Jimmy G going to the Rams, Isaac Yadama going to the Niners. You had Kendall Fuller going to the Panthers. Anyway, that's enough of that. So once you go ahead and download it, you will have to either overwrite the old file, which means it's just saving over the old file, or you can save it as a new file if you want to keep the old roster as well. I don't know why you would keep the old roster, but that's up to you. Then you have to go to load and delete, and you have to load the roster every single time you hop into a game, or you want to check out the roster, or you want to start a new franchise. You don't have to load it every time you go into franchise. You just have to load it every time you start a new franchise. That is something I do want to say. And you can't keep an old franchise and import a new roster. I don't know why people would think that. For franchise, you want to have to go to create new league. Of course, you have to create a new one and use active roster. Somebody was asking why the preseason roster keeps popping up. You cannot push use preseason roster, and you cannot push use real life roster. Do not push these two options. You have to push use active roster. So first you have to load it, then you have to use active roster. If you do not do that, you will not have the roster when you load into your new franchise, and you'll have to reset up once again. Hopefully that is easy enough to understand. Of course, you have to do the same thing when you're going into Play Now. Of course, Play Now, you don't have to do anything after you load the roster. Just go into Play Now. You cannot play online. That is something that EA does not allow because most people would have to have the same rosters, of course. And then, there would be people putting 99s on every single team, on a certain team and playing with that. And it would just be a whole ordeal. But let's go into the roster. Now, of course, you have guys like Keenan Allen and Kevin Byard joining the Bears, DeAndre Swift as well, Gerald Everett, which I want to talk about relatively soon, maybe sometime in the future. I do want to make a Bears video. I'm hoping to make a Bears video. We'll see how everything turns out. I did steal Tyler Scott's number. He is wearing 13 in real life. I figured Keenan Allen, if he's attached to the number 13, he'll probably buy it off of Tyler Scott, as Tyler Scott is a second-year guy out of Cincinnati, a fourth-round draft pick, or fifth, if I remember correctly. He wore 21 in college. I'm just going to give him 21. I don't really care at this moment right now. The jersey number is not going to change a whole ton. Like I said, Jimmy G joining the Rams. He's there. I didn't know what number to give him, so I just gave him 8. You have the Seahawks bringing Sam Howell. You have the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in, of course, Kenny Pickett. And then you have some other teams that aren't as important. The Buccaneers bringing back John Wolford, and the Steelers bringing in, of course, Russell Wilson, kicking Kenny Pickett to the curb. I put Kurt Benkert here just because I felt like it. They don't have another quarterback listed on the roster, so I just had to pick a random guy. Picked Kurt Benkert. I was going to pick the dude that they have, Duck Hodges, Devlin Duck Hodges, I think was his name. But I don't think he's in Madden this year, so there is that. The Titans, having Pollard, Awuzie, Ridley, Folk was brought back, all these different guys, Laurie Cushenberry, and Kenneth Murray. There's a ton to go check out on the roster. I'm going to show you guys a lot of it. Sam Darnold here. There's a lot of different changes at quarterback. Brett Rippon being on the Bears, of course, as well. There's a ton of stuff to look over. I really do suggest before you make your decision on whether or not you want to download my roster, well, if you want to play with my roster, go download it, check it out. It's a very good roster. I'm still releasing people that are not supposed to be on certain teams, and I think I could be incorrect here. I'm like 90% sure I have at least 30 of the 32 teams done with player future reserve contracts. If I missed your team, now, one thing I will say is there are some people that are not in Madden that I'm not going to make. No offense, a lot of those guys aren't going to make the roster. I'm just being real with you. A lot of these guys aren't going to make the roster. They're on a future reserve contract for a reason. They're not getting signed to a free agent contract for a reason, I think. I'm not trying to disrespect those guys. They made the league. They're there, all that fun stuff. I'm not trying to disrespect those guys. I'm just saying how it is, how it goes every year. A lot of those guys don't end up making the 53-man roster. Hell, a lot of those guys barely even make the practice squad. Like I said, I'm not trying to be rude to those players. I'm just stating it how it is. So I'm not going to be creating those guys when I want as many spots as possible for the drafted players, especially since I only got through pick 206 last year, which was beginning of the 6th round, but still, I do want to make sure that I have as many creative player slots as humanly possible. So that is something, there's a difference between me not getting future reserve contracts done for a certain team and certain players not being on a roster from future reserve contracts that aren't in Madden. So if you do go on to whatever team you're rooting for and you see like somebody's missing, go check in the free agency pool, see if, maybe they're at a different position. Maybe they're just not in the game, stuff like that. If they're at a different position and I accidentally looked over them, go ahead and let me know, and I'll go ahead and fix it as soon as humanly possible. Well, not as soon as humanly possible, whenever I do my next updates and stuff. Desmond Ridder back with the Cardinals now. Easton Stick back with the Chargers as well. Like I said, I'm still fixing a lot of the roster. Not fixing, more just fine-tuning a lot of the stuff, right? Getting more players released, getting more players that were on future reserve contracts, stuff like that. So there's still a lot to do. One thing I do want to mention is I do not change overalls for players. I don't. The only reason why a player's overall would be different than what EA put it as would be if I try to move their position. Either A, their position got moved because they're playing into a different scheme, or I think they would fit better here. One major one is, of course, Evan Neal. The rumored starting lineup is going to be Thomas, Neal, JMS, John Runyon, and Jermaine. I don't even know how to say that last name. But that's the rumored starting lineup. I could be wrong. And a lot of people are saying that the Giants are probably going to move Evan Neal into tackle. Now, I understand he is a huge fucking tackle, 6'7", 350. But it happens all the time, right? Don't be surprised by it. Eric Armstead is one guy I forgot to mention last time. Eric Armstead now with the Jags as well. So there's a lot of different stuff. I really do hope you guys go look at the roster before you guys make your final decision and make any, comments about the roster. Please go look at it. Make sure that you guys look it over. If I do have something wrong, go ahead and let me know. If I have a jersey number wrong, let me know. Now, of course, if that jersey number is already taken by a player, and I don't think they're going to be particularly a starter, I'm not going to give it to them. I did get Deebo Samuel's number done. He's supposed to be moving to number 1 next year. So there is that. Like I said, it's a lot of work. I put in a lot of time and effort into this roster. I hope you guys do like it. It has, of course it has its flaws with the limitations that EA puts on the roster, but I think it's a pretty good roster, all things considered. If you guys enjoy this content or any of the content here on my channel, I would appreciate if you guys do stick around and subscribe. Grinding towards 3,000 subs, I'd appreciate if you guys do stick around and subscribe. I'll be back with more videos like this, more roster updates. But as free agency does cool down a little bit more, of course, there will be less videos. I'm just making a lot of these so that people that are concerned that I'm not updating the roster and find one of the older videos, hopefully find one of the newer videos and see that the roster is getting updated and that there is a ton of different stuff that they can go in and check out. And just for everybody wondering, I'm using Sport Track, I'm using NFL Trade Rumors, I'm using ESPN, CBS Sports, I'm using PFF, I'm using Twitter, I'm checking Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, I'm checking a whole ton of different sites. Now, am I checking every single one each and every single time? No, I found some more reliable ones, Sport Track, and I think NFL Trade Rumors do an excellent job, and then getting on Twitter and stuff also helps out a lot. So if I do miss anybody, let me know. If it's somebody that has recently signed, wait a little bit. I normally do roster updates maybe once, twice, 3 times a day at most. And with the weekend, I'll probably be able to get those out pretty quickly. Like I said, please stick around and subscribe. I'll be back with more videos like this. I'll be back with Tennessee Titans franchise once the NFL offseason kind of slows down before the draft. I do have a 2K23 roster update video coming out, and I will probably have a Bears reaction to the offseason so far video coming out as well. I do appreciate the support you guys have shown on the videos. But with that being said, I'm out. Peace.